I will ask questions not only on free software but on freedom and other and related themes. So I hope that you
don't apologize.
Okay. Excuse me. No, I don't apologize. What do you think about Wikipedia and other forms of knowledge?
Wikipedia is a very good thing, because all the works of practical use, the works that serve a practical purpose, should be free. Works of practical use include software, obviously, and recipes, and reference works, of which Wikipedia is an example, and educational works. So we needed a free encyclopedia.
Yes. Also on copyright, what do you think about Creative Commons license?
Well, you just said a mistake. Creative Commons license.
Yeah.
That's a mistake because it's a confusion. You see, Creative Commons has more than a dozen licenses, and they have almost nothing in common. If you look at all the different licenses published by Creative Commons and find what they have in common in terms of permissions, freedoms granted to the public, the answer is zero.
Yeah, that's true.
So, to talk about them as if they were a single issue is already so confused that everything you say is wrong. I do not support Creative Commons as an activity because of the fact that the freedoms that its licenses have in common is zero. Creative Commons is not much like the free software movement. The basic idea of the free software movement is that there are certain essential freedoms everyone should have. And this is exactly what Creative Commons rejected. They don't believe there's any minimum freedom, any specific freedom that everyone should have. Now, Creative Commons licenses are typically used for art or opinion. Those are not works of practical use, and I don't think those are the same kind of issue. I wouldn't say those should all be free in the same way that software and encyclopedias should all be free. But there is a certain minimum freedom that everyone should have, and that is the freedom to distribute exact copies non-commercially. When Creative Commons started, its licenses all respected that freedom, and so I supported it. But it turns out that that was just a coincidence. It's not that they had a commitment to that, to requiring that freedom for everyone. It's just that they hadn't yet approved any licenses which didn't. And later on, they did. And so after I found out that they wouldn't change back, I withdrew my support.
Okay. What's on censorship on the internet? Do you know about censorship that made China?
Censorship.
Censorship, yes, but also in other
I know
countries.
something about it. I'm no expert, though.
Oh.
And I disapprove of censorship. But aside from that, I don't know anything else I can tell you.
Okay. Also, do you don't know nothing about the FF project, or
I don't know what it is.
Okay, it's not a problem. For me, the last question. What about the hacker culture? You were at the MIT AI lab when this culture rise. So, what the
Well, actually,
how influenced your?
That's not really English, so I have to guess what you're asking. The hacker culture existed at MIT before I got there. I joined a lab which was, in a way, sort of the one of the main centers of the hacker culture. And hacking meant mainly enjoying playful cleverness. And you could hack in any area of life, not necessarily with computers. breaking rules harmlessly is an important aspect of hacking because it's fun. If there's some stupid authority who is making you do things for no good reason, well, of course they deserve to be disobeyed, and it's fun to do so, especially if you're clever in figuring out a way of getting around their clunky restrictions. But it's not all about breaking rules. You know, finding the shortest program that could do a certain job was a challenge that people enjoyed back then. And no rules are involved except the rules that you follow, which are the rules of the computer's machine language. You can't not follow them and make the program work. But it was a challenge, and it was fun. So this element of having fun doing things that are challenging is the central aspect of what it means to be a hacker. And it's possible to hack in music as well.
Yeah.
For instance, in the 1300s, Guillaume de Machaut was Europe's first star composer. And he wrote, among many others, a piece that's a palindrome. It's called My End is My Beginning. The words are about being a palindrome. And not only is it a palindrome, it also sounds good because he was a good composer and everything he wrote sounds good. So I'd say that's a hack. It was playful cleverness. Of course, there were no computers, but so what?
Okay. And how it changes your mind, your path?
My what?
Come si dice il pensiero?
My what?
Thinking.
Thought.
Okay.
Thought.
Thank you for English lesson.
How did this affect my thinking? Well, of course, I had an inclination to being a hacker before I ever knew there was such a thing. But as soon as I encountered a bunch of hackers, I knew this is what I love. I want to be a hacker too. I enjoy these hacks. I enjoy other people's hacks, and I enjoy hacking myself. So I began hanging around the AI lab, and I got a job there.
Thank you.
Richard, can I ask?
And the spirit of hacking has a big influence on the free software movement today, because that community was my home, and it died, and so I found myself with nothing. And facing the likely prospect of a future of using and developing proprietary software and being disgusted and ashamed. So I decided I was going to do everything I could to bring back the kind of community where people would share and cooperate freely, and where everyone was welcome to join in, and we could hack and have fun and be nice to each other.
Thank you.
What are your plans after the release of the GPL version 3?
I don't have plans for that.
You don't have plans?
I usually don't make plans for the future very far ahead.
Great. Okay, one last question. Just say something to the Politecnico di Torino students who develop every day free software and open source software.
Well, I'd say, I can't say much about open source software because it's not all free software. Some of it is, some of it isn't.
You're right.
So I hope that all the software they're developing is free software, and I thank you, those of you who are working on free software. I thank you for contributing to our community. And I ask you to please always call it free software, because that way you will encourage other people to pay attention to the question of freedom. The term open source was formulated by people who did not want to talk about freedom, and that's the stupidest thing any people can do. If people don't talk about freedom, it gets forgotten, and then somebody says, if you will just accept these little restrictions, here is this convenient pleasure you can have. Essentially saying, we'll sell you something in exchange for your freedom. And if you have not been thinking about freedom and realizing what freedom means, you might accept that poisonous deal, and then your freedom is gone.